This video was requested by the user you can see on screen now. Today we'll be making a lock feature to prevent the player accidentally selling their stamina for coins. To get started, let's add a lock sell button to our settings GUI. I'm going to make our frame visible so that we know what we are working with. First, let's resize our reset button to create room for the lock sell button. Now let's add a text button to this frame. I will rename this and call it lock sell button. I'll set the size and position and decorate it the way I want. I'll set the text to sell unlocked, and then when we click it we can change it to sell locked. Secondly, let's create a boolean state that will be stored inside the player to tell us if the player has locked their sell feature or not. Go to our leader stat script and let's create this instance. Just before the portals, I'm going to add some new code. Local sell locked equals instance.new. We're going to add in a new boolean value, a new bool value. Sell locked dot name is, I'm just going to name this sell locked, just like this. The default value, so dot value will be false, and it's going to be inside of the player. Now let's test the game and make sure the boolean value loads into our player correctly. Go to view and enable the output, and now we can test the game. Once in test mode, go to players, find your player, and we want to look for the instance we've just created, the sell locked. You can see it here and it should be false by default. If you can see that, that means it's working properly. If you can't, check your output for errors. You most likely have done something incorrectly and have an error in your output. Now we need to add the ability to change the state when the button is clicked. Let's add a new remote event. Under replicated storage, under setting events, I'm going to add a new remote event, and I will rename this to lock sell. Let's go to our settings local script, so the local script under the settings GUI, and we need to create a new variable at the top. Local lock sell button equals frame, wait for child, lock sell button. Now at the bottom we need to add a new function so that whenever this button's clicked, we will set the lock state. So lock sell button dot mouse button one click, connect function. So when the lock sell button is clicked with the left mouse button, so local sell locked, let's just get this and store in a variable. That's going to be player, find first child, sell locked, like this. If sell locked does exist, then we're going to run some code in a minute. If it doesn't exist, we'll just warn that sell locked does not exist within the player. Just so that we have an output message in case the sell locked doesn't exist for whatever reason. Now under our if sell locked, then we'll say if sell locked dot value is false, then we want to effectively lock the sell feature here. So to do that, we'll say game.replicated storage.setting events.lock sell fire server passing in true. And that's because when we write the server side, we're going to have a parameter which is a boolean, which is basically tells us, are we locking it or not? So true means we're locking it, false means we're not locking it. And obviously we have to do this on the server side because we can't change server values in a local script, because then they'll only be local to that player. That's why we're using replicated storage here, we're using remote events. We'll write the server side in a minute. Let's just finish up the client side. So now I'm just going to change the text of the lock sell button just to say sell locked. Lock sell button.text equals sell locked. Now I'm going to add an else to this if statement. So if the sell locked is false, then the else means it's true. So if it's already true and we're clicking it, that means we want to unlock the sell feature. Game.replicated storage.setting events.lock sell fire server, this time passing in false. It's the exact same, and then lock sell button.text equals sell unlocked. Now we can close this local script, in fact close the settings GUI for now, and we need to add the server side code for this remote event. Open up our event script, and at the very bottom of the script, I know the script's getting long, but you can make another one if you'd like. I'm just doing it all in here because it makes sense. We're going to add game.replicated storage.setting events.lock sell.onServer event connect function. And you may have figured out by now that when we fire a remote event from a client to a server, the player's automatically passed as an argument. So we need a player parameter here, and obviously we need our state, our boolean state. So now let's just lock the state. It's easy as this, player.sellLocked.value equals state. That easy. We don't need to do any checks that the sell locked is within the player, because we are doing that in the local script before we call this event. Now let's test again and make sure the value of the boolean changes each time we click the button. So let's go test and play. Under our players, find your player, we're going to go to cell locked, and let's just hit this button. So I click it, it goes to cell locked, cell unlocked, and it does change the boolean state here in the properties tab. That's perfect. So we know that's working. Finally, we need to stop the player from being able to sell if the cell is locked. Go to the ExchangeCoins script, and now I'll do some optimizing. Take the code from inside one of the functions and make it a local function and call this instead. This is much more optimized. For example, I could say coinpad touched equals function, passing in this code, and now we're going to get an error that hit doesn't exist, so we'll just take hit as a parameter. And now what we can do is, in these coinpad touch functions, rather than all this code, we can just say coinpad touched passing in hit. And the exact same in the second one, coinpad touched passing in hit. Now in this function, let's add some code to stop the player selling if their cell lock is enabled. So after we've checked the player, if the player exists, let's get the local cell lock equals player colon find first child cell locked. If cell lock then, so if the cell lock exists, if cell lock.value is false, so if the cell's not locked, then we'll take these lines here and put them in there. So if the cell isn't locked, we want to sell. Otherwise, we'll do nothing. Now let's test this. So let's go test and play. So you can see I'm running around. I've got loads of stand up. So at the minute my cell is unlocked. So, there we go. Hold on. So if I was to go stand on here, it does sell and we're back to normal. Now if I was to get my points back up and set cell to locked, so we've got 160 now. If I walk over this, it doesn't do anything. So it's not actually selling because our cell is locked. If I unlock it, it will sell again. Just like so. But if I was to lock it, it won't sell. Perfect. So one last thing, back to our event script. Let's stop the cell pop-up window from appearing if you have cell locked. Go to the add points function and add the following code. So at the very bottom, where we've got if player.leaderstats.points.value is player.stamina.value, then, now before we call the full stamina remote event, we want to check our cell lock. So local cell lock equals player colon find first child cell locked. If cell lock then, if cell lock.value, it's the exact same as what we've been doing, but if the value is true, then we want to return. If our cell lock value is true, we don't want to pop up to the player to sell their stamina because it doesn't bother them. But they don't want to sell, so why would we want to pop up on the screen a window which says for them to sell? So now if we was to test and play, I'm just going to click this current client button, go under players, my player. I'm going to go to leader stats, points, and I'm going to make my points, my stamina's 5,000, so I'm going to make my points 4,990. Just to test this, I have actually just made a error, that's why it's good to have the output open. I've accidentally put a hashtag after one of the lines. Let me remove that and test it again, because that would not work. So as you can see, I got 4,990 points, my cell is unlocked. Now if I keep going, it says out of stamina, please sell your points to regain stamina. So I'm going to sell my points, and let's get moving again, and we're moving. Now I'm going to click this current client, do the exact same thing, and just change under the leader stats our points. I'm going to change it to 4,990 again, which we can see I now have 4,990 points out of 5,000. This time I'm going to lock the cell, and now when I get 5,000, I fell over, there we go. If I keep walking, it doesn't pop up anything on the screen, and as soon as I unlock that, it will pop up. That's it for this video. Hopefully you found it helpful. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, as it would really help us out. We have a Discord server, which you can find the link to in the description, where we are trying to build a community of current and future developers. You can also ask for programming support and help others there too. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.